Books are judged by their cover. That is just something to accept. Hi, hello, welcome back or welcome in if you're new around here. Today, I am here to deliver on a promise I made in a previous video. I've already shared my book cover making process, going over all of the steps I usually follow in order to reach a not so ugly result. Today, I'd like to dive in the practical part or side. I'll share some of the techniques that I almost always use when working with an image editing software. Speaking of software, I personally use Photoshop, but again, that's because I use it for more than just book covers. I've been using it for years. I understand that not everyone is able to pay for it or even willing to pay for it. That's why today, for this tutorial, I'll be using Photopea, which is a web app. You don't have to download it in order to use it, but I think they have a downloadable software. Also, note that there are some features in this app that are premium, meaning you'll need to pay in order to use them, but for the time being, their free version is more than enough. The reason I picked Photopea over other free softwares is because it closely resembles Photoshop in its layout, which I am more familiar and comfortable with. Bear in mind, I'm not saying that you're going to be an expert after this video. Hell, I'm not one either. But it should get you started and comfortable moving forward with your projects, at least until you can afford a professional. But until then, if you don't have the money to invest, then you need to invest some of your time learning the skills that will get you to a comfortable enough place. Alright, enough of this. Let's get into it. You can play with Photopea as you watch this video. I'd actually recommend that. First step is familiarizing with the environment. Whatever software you use, the first step is always going to be familiarizing. Have some fun with it as you get to know it more. It's like going to a new place or when you enter somebody's house for the first time. You can smell a foreign scent or perfume around yourself, but the more time you spend there, the more used you get to the scent. And at some point, you don't even notice it anymore. And you don't feel like an outsider anymore, unless it's an awful smell. But it's just how our brains work. So, this is what you see upon clicking on the link itself. At the top, we have a menu that we'll explore later. Here on the side is some sort of directory access where you give the app permission to access something like your computer, your Dropbox, your Google Drive, and other stuff. They even have games here that they're advertising, but that doesn't interest us today. Down here, we have the file formats that the app supports. If you have a PSD file, which is a Photoshop file, basically, you can open it in Photopea and vice versa. You can save a project as a PSD. The same goes for the rest here. This void space is for ads that you can eliminate by paying. Now, you might think, I'll just use an ad blocker, which is fair, but they offer to unlock some premium features by watching ads sometimes. So, if you don't want to go premium, you can watch some ads for the premium tools. I personally don't care here because I do not use Photopea. These 4 buttons are what we're going to talk about. First, the button to create a new project. It has you input some information about the project, the title, the size, height, and width. This button allows you to link the height and width together, which means they depend on each other. If you change one, the other will follow. For DPI, it's the number of pixels per inch or pixels per centimeters. I usually use 300 pixels per inch. And then the background. The cool feature they have here is that if you're making something for social media, you don't have to really worry about size. They don't have every format, but it's better than nothing. Font sizes, screen sizes, you get the point. Let's go back for now. Open from your computer is what I said before, a file that you were already working on or a file that you've downloaded from the internet. You can work on it in Photopea, as long as it's a format that is supported by the app. Install Photopea. I'm guessing it's the option to download the software instead of working on the web app. And finally here, we have templates. You have multiple categories filled with amazing resources to make your life easier. Let's type book mockups. And you can see it's suggesting book mockups you can use to promote your books later on. I believe these templates were shared by the generous people who made them as a contribution, which is amazing if you want my opinion. And that's not what we're going to focus on for today. You can explore these on your own later. We're going to click on one of these templates here, which will lead us to the workspace. Immediately, I want to focus on this part over here. These are the layers. Think like pages on top of pages. Each layer is like a sheet of paper. These little eyes here control visibility. If you uncross one of them, the layer becomes invisible, like so. I believe this is where the true power of an image editing software really lies. It's the ability to control every layer independently, and consequently, every step you make during the editing itself. You can keep track of everything you do, and you can reverse actions more effectively that way. You can even rename the layers in order not to get lost. Let me demonstrate it. This is the button to create a new layer. It's an empty layer. If I draw on it, this drawing will be on this layer alone. If I decide to delete it, it doesn't affect the rest of the layers. Another very cool thing with this button is that if you select a specific layer and drag it onto this button, it duplicates it, which I definitely recommend doing when you're going to use certain destructive tools. This button is in order to make a folder. It's a tool to help you organize your work. If you have 1,000 layers in your project, creating folders for them is the best method to find your way around all of them. Next button is the adjustment layers. I want to focus on these options at the top because I will get back to the rest later on. The color fill does what it says it does. It fills the canvas with one color, but it creates a new separate layer for it. Now, you'll ask me, what's the point of this color fill in this context? It just hides everything else. Well, you can play with it in whatever way you want. You can, for example, change its opacity and look at what it gives. You can also change its blend mode, and you can settle on the effect that looks the best. Blend modes are an important tool, and they'll have their own dedicated section in this tutorial. Gradient fill is the same, except it creates a gradient that you can customize. Same with pattern fill. But for the time being, I want to talk about the next button, the mask button, which is one of the tools I love the most. As the name suggests it, it serves as a mask. You click on the layer you want to mask and nothing happens. But that's totally normal. Let's try it again. When you click on the mask button, the mask itself appears as a blank white sheet on the layer you want to mask. You make sure to select the black color in the palette here, and then you take the brush tool. And look, it's hiding the layer. The black spot on the mask is the hidden or the masked area of the layer. Okay, more on this later. For the effects button, or EFF, it's a list of effects that you can use on each layer separately. Whatever effect you select appears on the layer section like so. Cool. Let's move on to the toolbar. The first 4 tools here are selection tools. The first one, I use it to just move layers around. It moves whatever layer is selected. The artboard is not something I use, so I won't be talking about it. Now, notice anytime you select a tool, these attributes over here change because they're parameters of each tool. Look, let me make a new layer. I select the rectangle selection tool and then take the brush tool and see, only the selected area is affected by the brush. The Unite feature allows me to add to the shape by drawing another selection on top of the first one, and they're going to be combined. If I use a subtract, it's going to deselect the area I chose. And when I use the brush, ta-da! It doesn't paint the deselected area anymore. Lasso selection is the same, except it's a free selection, not a shaped one. Same with polygon tool. It's important to know that to create a selection like this, you will need to draw back to the origin point. The magnetic one kind of sticks to clear edges. Let me open a new image to demonstrate it. Look, I am just moving it and it's finding the edges. I'll draw back to the point of start. And then do this. See? It's not the most accurate selection tool by any means, but it's usable. Now, the magnetic wand, I personally don't use it that much. You can select specific things like this, for example. The quick selection tool can come in handy. See this little plus? It means it's selecting. While this minus sign means it's going to deselect whatever you click on. It's not that accurate of a tool either, but I use it a lot more than a magic wand. The object selection tool is relatively new to Photoshop as well. I haven't had the time to play with it all that much, but it does the job more often than not. It helps quickly select a subject or an object, which may sound like the quick selection tool, but it's supposed to be more advanced. Here, the select object tool is a premium option. In the free version, you can use it once every 4 hours only, or watch an ad instead of paying the $5 for premium. The cropping tool does what its name suggests, cropping images. I don't really use it all that much either. So, I'd like to move on to the eyedropper tool. With this, you can just select a color from the image and it appears here. Here, you select the number of pixels it samples. And here, you select the layer it samples from. See, if I click on the text layer and chose sample from the current layer only, it doesn't sample the color you see under it, right? That's because there is nothing to sample. It's empty space as the layers underneath it are not selected. Now, the color sampler tool. I select and I start clicking around. Look, it leaves these little pins all over the image, but nothing changes at all. You go to infos, #1 are the values of the first pin, #2 of the second pin, and etc. etc. This tool exists to help you keep the values of interesting colors you might want to use in a future project. If I hover over a pin, I can move it, and here you can see the position of the pin in real time. Hue, saturation, and brightness, all of these are values you learn to exploit. Next tool, and for this group of tools, there are a few things that are important to do. First, duplicate your image. Because the actions are destructive. If you don't like the result, you can just delete it. Second, let me choose another image and you'll see. When it is important into the workspace, it has this square black shape. This means that this layer is a smart object layer. Watch this. The first healing tool we're going to see is the spot healing tool. We go up here and put the size of the brush up to 655 pixels and hardness or hardness of the edges of the brush to 0 pixels. And let us go over the lighthouse. Click here, it doesn't work. It asks you to rasterize the layer first because it's a smart object. What you need to know is that aside from the text layers and the effect layers, there are 3 types of layers: raster, vector, and smart object. Raster is basically composed of a determined number of pixels. Vector is not determined by pixels, but by mathematical formulas. Whereas smart objects technically are made out of pixels, but not a specific number. It stores pixel data. This healing brush tool, as you can see, works with defined pixelated layers only. So, some tools only work on rasterized layers. We'll talk more about these types of layers later. Alright, we click here and here and poof, it's almost like it was never here. But this little piece here remains, and so we go down to the healing brush tool. Now, this one requires a sample. So, the first step is to go on a spot that you want to sample. And if you're on Windows, you click on the Alt key and click on that spot. Your spot is now sampled. After that, you go back to the place. You put the cross over it here. You can already see the sampled area. You simply click, no Alt key, and ta-da, lighthouse gone. crop the image and voila. The Magic Replace, unfortunately, is a premium tool, so we're not going over it. Next up, for the Patch tool, you can select an area and then move it around like this. Once you release, you'll notice that the colors have sort of harmonized to fit in place. With the Content Aware Move tool, you also select a piece that you want, but once you move it, it's like you take it out of its place and move it to somewhere new, and the empty hole you leave behind is automatically going to fill itself. It's a tool to use with care. As for the red eye tool, I believe it serves to remove red eyes. You know, that effect you get when you take a picture of someone. Next, the brush tool. I'd like to keep this tool for the next part of this tutorial. Why? Because I use it a lot. So, since I'm going to speak about it in details later on, there is no need for me to repeat myself. Now, with the brush tool, there is the pencil tool as well as color replacement tool, which I have not found any use for as of recently, so I'd like to skip them. Moving on to the clone stamp tool. It does what its name says it does. It clones parts of an image and you can draw them on a different part. Like so. First, you press Alt key in order to copy or sample, and then you go to the part you want to draw on. You release the Alt key and draw. But notice something here. If I keep going, it clones the entire image. It just takes the point you cloned as a starting point. Very similarly to the healing brush tool actually. Then the eraser tool, which I don't use. Instead, in order to erase, or a better word for it would be to mask things, I use the brush tool. Again, I'll be going into details about the brush tool as it is part of almost every technique I'll be showing. Brush tool plus mask button. Remember these well. Same thing for the gradient tool. When I want to create a gradient, I resort to gradient fill, unless I'm trying to mask something. Let me show you. Two photos in different layers. You create a mask first for the top layer image. And then you go on the gradients list and select this one. And then you come here, start from the end and drag towards the image. And ta-da! You can also use the brush tool to do this though. The paint bucket is to fill a closed area with a color or a pattern of your choice. Notice how it doesn't really cross this line here until you actually click on it. The blur tool blurs. I often use it to blur harsh edges, usually the edges of a mask. The sharpen tool does the exact opposite of blurring. The smudge tool smudges things. Look here, if I change the strength, what happens when I smudge? It pulls the smudge way further. Whereas when I decrease it, it's tiny. I use this tool to complement fur or hair. I'll show you examples later. The dodging and burning tools. I never use these because there is an alternative technique literally called dodging and burning. To dodge is basically to brighten. To burn is the opposite. I use the dodging and burning technique mostly to correct brightness, tone, and sometimes imperfection on subjects' faces. After that, the same goes for the sponge tool. It either saturates or desaturates. I don't use it because there is a much better alternative, just like for the dodging and burning. Type tool. You click where you want to put your text, you write your text, and then you start modifying it if you want. You want to move it around, you pull your cursor away until it shape shifts into this, and then you press on your mouse or touchpad and move, and it moves. Here, you play with the font style, but keep in mind that if you want to change the font style of a word or a sentence, you need to select it first. It's the same in writing software as well. And then you got this box here, which I'm sure does not need any explaining. The size, the color, the stroke is the border around the text. You can change the color and the width of a stroke. Background is like a highlighting effect, which once again is also present in writing softwares. Recognize these signs? I should hope so. This tab kind of changes the edges of your text lines. Let me show you. See? You choose which one based on what works for you. I've never used this one, so I'll just move on to the warp tool, which warps text. We then go to this tab here. We'll find most attributes that we've already seen before, plus a few more, which you can play with in your own time. Then the paragraph section here. Same thing, I advise you to paste a paragraph over your image and play with these. It's the best way to get used to them. Now, I'd like to talk about saving your project. When you're working and every time you make progress, I advise you to save your project in case something happens. When it's a new project, you pick Save as PST or whatever project you want to keep it as. Then, as you're working on your project, you simply click on Save, or simultaneously Control and S if you're on Windows. I'd like to stop this video right here. I think that would be for the best. In the next part of this tutorial, we'll talk about the pen tool, which is a tad more complex as well as the rest of these tools here in the menu section. I will put these tutorials in a playlist so that they'll be easier to find and follow. I'd suggest taking at least 30 minutes of your day playing with these tools that we already saw today. Getting used to the layout of the app will help you learn faster and get the hang of things quicker. You do not need to be an absolute expert in order to make your own book cover, but some time is needed for you to create the best you can. Alright, I hope this tutorial actually helps somebody, at least, and I hope to see you all in the next video. But until then, take care of yourselves, stay safe, and bye-bye.